The night I became a vampire, I was only trying to donate blood and look responsible for once in my life. That was it. No dark rituals. No mysterious cloaks. No dramatic lightning in the sky, although, in hindsight, there was a suspicious flicker of the streetlight outside the clinic, but I ignored it. My name is Oliver Brooks, 26 years old, professional overthinker, part-time disappointment to my parents, and up until that night, completely human. I walked into Westbridge Community Medical Center thinking I'd be in and out in 30 minutes with a free biscuit and a juice box. I walked out, well, not exactly walked out, more like slithered into the beginning of a cursed existence with a craving for blood and an extreme allergy to the sun, all because I wanted to do a good deed. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and old coffee, the kind that's been reheated so many times it has lost all sense of purpose. A bored-looking nurse checked my name against a clipboard and smiled in a way that suggested she would rather be anywhere else on Earth. "First time donating?" she asked. I nodded like a proud citizen trying to earn a gold star. She led me to a small room with a narrow bed and a machine that looked far too enthusiastic about pulling fluids out of people. I made a joke about fainting easily. She laughed politely, and I lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles with faded water stains shaped like continents that no longer existed. Everything felt normal. Too normal. That was my first mistake. A man entered the room right after the nurse left. He wore a lab coat, but it was black instead of white. That should have been my second mistake. His skin was pale in a way that suggested he had never met sunshine personally, and his smile was straight out of a toothpaste commercial, too bright for comfort. "I'm Dr. Victor," he said, extending a hand that felt oddly cold. I shook it, thinking maybe the air conditioning was just aggressive. He adjusted the machine and hummed softly to himself, a tune I didn't recognize but that somehow made my skin crawl. "You're doing a wonderful thing for the community," he said. I puffed up with pride, unaware that the community he meant was not, in fact, human. The needle went into my arm with a small sting, nothing dramatic. I turned my head away, because I am brave in spirit but weak in practice. The machine started humming, and everything was fine for about 30 seconds. Then I felt dizzy. Not the normal, standing up too fast, dizzy. This was the, gravity has personally betrayed me kind of dizzy. My vision blurred. The ceiling began to swirl. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt like it had resigned from active duty. Dr. Victor leaned closer, his eyes glowing just a tiny bit red. "Oh dear," he murmured. That was the last human voice I heard for a while. When I woke up, the room was empty, the bed was cold, and the machine was gone. I assumed I had fainted and been moved to a recovery room. I sat up and nearly launched myself into the opposite wall. Apparently, I had gained super strength somewhere between losing consciousness and waking up. My ears picked up sounds I had never heard before. Distant footsteps, the buzz of fluorescent lights down the hall, and the faint ticking of a clock 3 rooms away. My heart wasn't beating. That realization came with an awkward silence inside my chest that I did not appreciate. I placed a hand over my chest, waiting for the reassuring thump-thump. Nothing. I laughed nervously. "Okay, Oliver," I told myself. "Either you're dead, or you've been skipping cardio for so long your heart gave up." I shuffled into the hallway, only to discover the clinic was completely empty. No nurses, no patients, no bored receptionist scrolling through her phone, just silence. It was nighttime now, somehow. The windows showed a dark sky dusted with stars. My throat suddenly burned with a dry, aching thirst that no amount of water seemed capable of fixing. I found a water fountain and drank until my stomach felt like a trapped aquarium, but the thirst only grew sharper, deeper, more demanding. A strange thought crept into my mind, uninvited and very specific. "You don't need water." I didn't like the way that thought sounded. I really didn't like the next one that followed. "You need blood." "Nope," I said out loud, backing away from the fountain like it had insulted my mother. "Absolutely not." I stumbled outside, squinting at the streetlight. The moment the light brushed my skin, pain exploded across my arm like I had hugged a frying pan. I yelped and dove back into the shadows, clutching my smoking sleeve. Yes, smoking. Actual smoke. I stared at it in horror. "That is not normal," I whispered. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my best friend, Jason. Bro, did you survive the blood donation, or did you finally faint like a Victorian child? I typed back with shaking fingers, I think I'm a vampire. He replied with a laughing emoji and, sure you are. Did they give you cookies? Panic set in. Real, full, body, life crisis panic. I hid under the clinic's awning, avoiding the streetlight like it owed me money. My reflection stared back at me from the glass door, paler, sharper, eyes just a little too bright. I opened my mouth and saw them. Fangs. Actual fangs, I screamed. The scream echoed down the empty street, dramatic and unhelpful. Somewhere in the distance, a stray cat hissed like it needed none of my problems. The thirst roared again, louder this time, burning down my throat like fire wrapped in sandpaper. I could hear a heartbeat nearby. I didn't know whose it was, but my instincts locked onto it like a heat-seeking missile. This is bad, I whispered. This is very, very bad. I ran. I didn't really decide to run, my body just did it. 1 second I was under the awning, the next I was on the next street over, crouched behind a dumpster, breathing air I didn't actually need. The world felt too sharp, too loud, too alive. Every sound punched into my skull. Every scent told a story I didn't ask to hear. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal and tried to pray, but I wasn't sure who handled vampire emergencies. I thought about my parents, who still believed I was finding myself. I thought about my job at the electronics store. I thought about how I still owed Jason $20. Then I heard footsteps again closer this time and a warm, steady heartbeat that made my mouth water in the worst way possible. A shadow stretched across the ground beside the dumpster. Someone was humming. The same tune Dr. Victor had hummed in the clinic. My stomach, or whatever I had now dropped. A familiar pale face stepped into view, red eyes glowing softly in the dark. Ah, Oliver, he said cheerfully, as if we were meeting for coffee. You're adjusting well for a newborn. My voice trembled as I demanded, what did you do to me? He smiled wider. A simple mistake, he replied. You were supposed to be the donor, not the replacement. The thirst surged, the fear tightened, and in that moment, I realized my life had taken a very sharp, very toothy turn. I didn't scream because I was brave. I didn't scream because my body had apparently decided terror was now a lifestyle and not an emergency. Newborn? I croaked instead, still crouched behind the dumpster like a rejected raccoon. Doctor. Victor stood there in his black coat, looking proud the way a man might look after assembling furniture incorrectly but confidently. Yes, he said gently. Brand new, fresh, still warm, metaphorically speaking. I stared at him, then at my smoking sleeve, then back at him. You turned me into a vampire by mistake. He tilted his head as if considering the weather. Technically, yes, but in my defense, you have very juicy blood, easy to confuse with my scheduled donor. I lunged at him, not to attack, mostly to grab his stupid coat and demand a refund on my humanity. Instead, I overshot by several feet and crashed into a pile of old cartons with the kind of force usually reserved for action movies and badly parked trucks. I lay there blinking at the stars through a jagged gap in the boxes while Dr. Victor applauded lightly. Excellent strength for your first night, he said. You'll be terrifying in no time. I staggered back to my feet. I don't want to be terrifying, I snapped. I want to be normal. I work retail. I have a store loyalty card. I use coupons. He looked genuinely puzzled. Why would you give all that up? He stepped closer, and the thirst flared again, hot and violent. My body leaned toward him without asking my permission. I hated that, most of all, the betrayal from the inside. You need to feed soon, he said casually. Your control will not hold much longer without blood. I backed away until I hit the brick wall behind me. I am not biting anyone, I said. I have morals. Also, I'm terrible at confrontation, he laughed softly. You will surprise yourself. Hunger is persuasive. With a flick of his wrist, a rat scurried out from the shadows, as if summoned by a demonic pet whistle. I stared at it. He stared at me. The rat stared at both of us and squeaked nervously. Try, he said. No, I said firmly. Absolutely not. I refused to start my vampire career with a rodent. The rat squeaked again and darted off. Dr. Victor sighed like a disappointed teacher. Very well. Idealism is common in first nights. He waved at the street. Come, we must get you away from the light. Also, you are beginning to smell nervous, and that attracts complications. I didn't know what complications meant in vampire language, but I suspected teeth were involved. With no better options and a burning throat that felt like it was lined with sandpaper and regret, I followed him into the deeper shadows of the city. We moved fast, ridiculously fast. Buildings blurred past. Street signs became colorful suggestions. At one point, I tripped over nothing and still managed to roll 3 times without losing momentum. We stopped at a narrow brick building squeezed between a closed laundromat and a hair salon that specialized in aggressively pink wigs. Dr. Victor opened a hidden door and ushered me inside. The interior looked like a vampire had married an antique store and then divorced it messily. Dark furniture, heavy curtains, candles in places that violated several fire safety codes. I collapsed onto a velvet couch, clutching my throat. I'm dying, I gasped. Again. He poured something dark into a crystal glass and handed it to me. The liquid shimmered softly. Synthetic substitute for emergencies. I sniffed it. It smelled like pennies and wet roses, bottoms up. I drank it. The relief was instant and shameful. The fire dulled into a warm pulse. My muscles relaxed. My vision sharpened even more. I wiped my mouth and realized I had just slurped blood-flavored mystery juice without a single complaint. I hate everything, I muttered. Dr. Victor smiled, deeply pleased. Good, that means you are adapting. He pulled up a chair and sat across from me like we were about to discuss investment strategies instead of supernatural corruption. Now, a brief orientation. You are immortal. Sunlight will burn you crisply. You are stronger, faster, and unfortunately, thirstier. You will not age. You will need blood. And you now belong, loosely speaking, to my mistake. I slammed the glass down. You don't get to mistake me into undeath and then claim ownership, I said. That's not how consent works. He raised an eyebrow. You shook my hand. That was just a handshake, I snapped. That doesn't mean turn me into a creature of the night. He considered this. Human contracts are more complex than I remember. He stood. Regardless, you require survival training, control training, and a new wardrobe. That shirt is already smoking. I looked down. The fabric was indeed smoldering around a small beam of moonlight that had slipped through a crack in the curtain. I slapped at it uselessly. Why does everything burn me now? He shrugged. Dramatic design choice. Blame ancient magic. My phone buzzed again. Jason, where did you disappear to? Also, I googled vampire symptoms as a joke and now I'm concerned. I typed, I'm at a stranger's house. I drank weird red juice. I think my heart stopped. The dots appeared instantly. I'm calling you. Before I could stop him, my phone rang. I answered in a whisper. If you call the police, they won't believe you, I hissed. Oliver, are you drunk? He demanded. Worse, I said. I'm undead. There was a pause. Then, laughter. Real, ugly, supportive laughter. Man, you pass out one time, and suddenly you're Dracula. I glared at the phone. If I show you my fangs, will you take this seriously? Another pause. Wait, you actually sound scared. Dr. Victor leaned over my shoulder. Tell him goodbye, he said cheerfully. Your mortal ties will complicate your transition. I swatted at his hand. No one asked you. Into the phone, I said. Jason, listen, I'm not joking. There's a pale man in a black coat in the room with me and I think he's my accidental vampire dad. Silence. Then, very slowly, send me your location. Dr. Victor's smile sharpened. Ah, he said. Your first test of restraint is about to arrive. My stomach dropped. You are not biting my best friend. Of course not, he said mildly. Ideally, you will. Something inside me twisted fear, hunger, loyalty, all tangled together. I had barely accepted that I was a vampire, and now the person I cared about most was walking straight into my nightmare. The thirst stirred again, curious and eager. I gripped the arm of the couch until the wood groaned. "If you make me hurt him," I said quietly, "I don't care how immortal you are, I'll find a way to ruin you." Dr. Victor studied me with open interest. "Good," he said. "There is the spine of the creature you are becoming." Outside, a car door slammed. Jason was here, and I was not ready for my first feeding or my first choice as a monster.
Jason's footsteps echoed in the narrow hallway outside the building like they were being amplified by my guilt. Every step he took made the thirst surge harder, like my body was applauding his arrival for all the wrong reasons. I pressed my back against the couch and slid down onto the floor, gripping my knees like that might somehow physically hold the monster inside me in place. "Call him off," I whispered to Dr. Victor. "Call him off right now." Dr. Victor adjusted the cuff of his coat calmly. "I did not summon him. You did. With your attachment." The words felt heavier than they should have. The doorbell rang, sharp, loud, innocent. Jason on the other side had no idea he was ringing the doorbell of a vampire nest by mistake. "I'm going to open that door, see your stupid face, and everything is going to be normal." Jason's voice came through the door, muffled but familiar. "If you're messing with me right now, I swear." I shot upright. "Don't come in," I yelled. There was a pause. Then the handle turned anyway. The door creaked open, and Jason stepped inside, wearing his usual hoodie, confusion, and concerned best friend energy. His eyes moved from me on the floor to Dr. Victor, standing by the curtains. "Who's your goth landlord?" he asked. My throat burned so hard I had to clench my jaw to keep from gasping. The smell of living blood filled the room like a siren call straight to my skull. "Close the door," Dr. Victor said softly. The door slammed shut on its own. Jason jumped. "Okay," he said slowly, turning in a circle. "That's new." He looked at me again. "Oliver, why do your eyes look like you just downloaded a horror movie in HD?" I tried to answer. My mouth opened, and my fangs slipped down on instinct. Jason froze. He leaned in. "Are those medical?" I shook my head. "I became a vampire by mistake," I said in one shaky breath. He stared at me, blinked once. Then he laughed, loud and relieved. "Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say you joined a pyramid scheme." The laughter stopped when I hissed. The sound ripped out of me without permission, sharp, animal, hungry. Jason's smile slid right off his face. He took a step back. "That was not normal human behavior," he said quietly. My hands shook. "Jason, I need you to leave," I begged. "Right now? Please." He hesitated. "Are you dangerous?" Dr. Victor answered for me. "Extremely." I shot him a murderous look. Not helping. Jason swallowed. His heartbeat thundered in my ears like a drum solo. I could hear the rhythm change as fear set in. Each beat was louder, richer. My mouth filled with saliva. My entire body leaned forward inch by inch without my permission. "Oliver," Jason whispered, "you're doing the creepy statue thing." I slammed my eyes shut and dug my nails into my palms. "Don't move," I growled. "If you move, I don't know if I'll stop." Dr. Victor watched with scientific fascination. "You are resisting well," he said. "Most newborns would be halfway through the jugular by now." "That is not comforting," I snapped. Jason's voice trembled. "Buddy, you're scaring me." "Good," I said through clenched teeth. "Be scared. And walk backward." Slowly. He did exactly that, bumping into the door blind. "I've seen a lot of weird stuff on the internet," he muttered, "but none of it prepared me for you trying not to eat me." The handle rattled as Jason struggled with it. Dr. Victor flicked his wrist again. The door locked with a loud metallic click. Jason spun around in panic. "Hey, unlock that." I lunged, not at Jason, but at Dr. Victor. I crashed into him with more force than I intended, slamming him into a bookcase that exploded into flying dust and ancient-looking books. "You promised you wouldn't make me hurt him," I warned. He peeled himself off the wreckage calmly, brushing off splinters. "I promised I would not bite him," he corrected. "Your restraint is what is being tested." Jason stared at us in open horror. "You two argue like you've been divorced for centuries." My control was slipping fast. The thirst was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. My vision narrowed to Jason's pulse fluttering at his throat. My muscles coiled tight, trembling. Dr. Victor stepped between us suddenly and sliced his own palm open with one swift movement of his nail. Dark blood flowed. The scent hit me like a physical blow. "Drink," he commanded. Every instinct screamed yes. Every human part of me screamed no. I turned away, gagging. I'm not drinking you, I protested. I barely tolerate you socially. Jason whimpered. I don't know which of you is winning this argument, but I would really like to leave alive. Dr. Victor sighed and hurled the bloody hand across the room. It splattered against the wall in a horrifying abstract pattern. Very well, he said. We escalate. He snapped his fingers. The air shifted. A hidden door opened in the floor. From beneath, a terrified human voice cried out. Please. I paid already. I just needed a refill. My stomach dropped straight through the floor after it. You keep people here? I whispered. Of course, he said. Ethical feeding requires logistics. Jason's eyes were huge. You have a human basement fridge? I moved toward the trapdoor in horror. Let him go, I demanded. Dr. Victor's eyes hardened. Then feed, Oliver. Or watch what happens when you refuse what you are. My body shook violently. The thirst howled. Jason took a step toward me. Ollie, he said softly, using the childhood nickname I hadn't heard in years. Don't do this. You're still you. The words hit harder than any supernatural command. Something inside me snapped into place, stubborn, scared, human. I grabbed Dr. Victor by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Unlock the door and release him, I said, or I start redecorating with your ribs. For the first time that night, Dr. Victor looked genuinely surprised, then impressed. Very well, he rasped. He flicked his wrist. The locks clicked. The trapdoor slammed shut on its own. Jason bolted for the exit the moment the door unlocked and flung himself outside. The silence afterward was deafening. I released Dr. Victor slowly. My whole body trembled with the aftermath of restraint. You almost lost your first real friend, he said quietly. That is the cost of morality in our world. I sank onto the couch, shaking. Then your world is broken, I replied. From outside, Jason's text buzzed in my pocket. I don't know what you are now, but you just saved me. I'm not giving up on you. I stared at the message as the thirst flared again, unanswered, unsatisfied, waiting. And for the first time, I realized survival might be harder than death. The room smelled like old books, spilled blood, and my rapidly dying sense of normalcy. I sat slumped on the velvet couch, staring at my shaking hands like they belonged to a stranger who had stolen my life and refused to explain why. Dr. Victor straightened his coat as if nothing dramatic had just happened, as if I hadn't almost committed accidental best friend homicide 10 minutes earlier. You will need to feed tonight, he said calmly. Your refusal earlier was admirable, but unsustainable. I glared at him. I am not putting my mouth on anyone's neck. He tilted his head. Then you will put your mouth on a cup. He vanished into the shadows and returned with a stainless steel tumbler filled with dark liquid. Hospital supply, he added. Donations. Expired. Ethical. I squinted at it. You say that like you're trying to convince yourself. I took one experimental sip and immediately gagged. It tastes like regret and pennies. I coughed. Dr. Victor frowned. You must develop your palate. I don't want a palate for blood, I snapped. I want pizza taste buds and lactose intolerance like a normal person. The tumbler trembled in my hand as the thirst raged again. My body didn't care about my moral stance. I chugged the rest with my eyes squeezed shut like a child taking cough syrup. The relief was instant and humiliating. My spine straightened. My senses steadied. I hate that this works, I muttered. Acceptance is the first step toward mastery, Dr. Victor said. No. Denial with snacks is my coping strategy. He insisted we needed to test my mobility in open space, which was vampire code for throwing me into the real world to see if I burst into flames. We exited through the back of the building into an alley that smelled strongly of garbage and questionable life choices. The moonlight touched my skin without burning this time, which I considered deeply unfair after the earlier arm fire incident. The moon is harmless, Dr. Victor explained. It is the sun that hates you. Fantastic, I muttered. Even the universe picked sides. He pointed upward. Run. Why? I asked. So you don't die, he said. That was motivation enough. I ran. Or at least, I attempted to run like a human. My body had other plans. I launched forward so fast my brain lagged behind. The building streaked into abstract art. I tripped, flipped, hit a wall, and landed upright facing the opposite direction like a confused GPS. I overshot physics. I shouted. Dr. Victor appeared beside me without moving his feet. You must learn control, he said. I just learned I can accidentally become a missile, I replied. This is terrible news. We practiced stops, starts, and not punching holes through public property for over an hour. By the end, I was sweaty even though I technically didn't sweat. Growth, I suppose. Then came the worst lesson of the night, blending in. Dr. Victor dropped me near a late-night convenience store, glowing like a beacon of human normalcy and bad snack decisions. Enter, he instructed. Behave as you did before. I adjusted my hoodie nervously. I already behaved badly before. Inside, the clerk stared at me like something was deeply wrong with the universe. He wasn't wrong. The fluorescent lights burned faintly against my skin like a mild insult. I shuffled to the fridge and grabbed a bottled water on instinct. The moment I took a sip, I gagged. It tasted like betrayal. The thirst howled in protest. A woman beside me dropped her keys, and the metallic jingle sounded like a drum solo in my skull. Her heartbeat hit my ears like bass. I bolted for the counter, slapped money down, and ran out without the water. The clerk yelled after me, "Sir, you didn't take your change." I screamed back, "Keep it. Buy a mallet." Outside, Dr. Victor nodded approvingly. "You resisted." "Barely," I said, shaking. "You people go shopping like this all the time?" "We avoid temptation when possible," he shrugged. "You just walk directly into it like a confused deer." I glared. I needed emotional support snacks. He led me down a quieter street. Trash cans rattled. A cat darted across the road and stopped when it saw us. It hissed at me. I hissed back on impulse. The cat's eyes widened. It ran for its life. I stared after it. "That was rude," I whispered. "You are adjusting quickly," Dr. Victor said. Halfway down the block, a trio of drunk men stumbled out of a bar laughing loudly. The sound struck my ears like thunder. Alcohol-thick blood pulsed warmly beneath their skin. My control snapped like cheap elastic. I staggered. Dr. Victor grabbed my shoulder hard enough to crack concrete beneath his feet. "No," he commanded. "Not this way. They sound like walking juice boxes," I rasped. "Focus," he growled. "If you feed without consent, you will never see yourself the same way again." That hit harder than hunger. I forced my gaze away, staring at the pavement like it held the secrets of the universe. The men walked past, unaware that their lives had just been debated by a creature who used to buy discount cereal. We returned to the building before dawn. My body vibrated with exhaustion I technically shouldn't feel. Dr. Victor gestured toward a small room with blackout curtains and a coffin that looked suspiciously new from an uncomfortably specific catalog. "You will rest here," he said. "Tomorrow night, we begin proper training." I stared at the coffin. "I am not sleeping in a wooden box." "Fine," he said. "Lie on top of it." I lay on my back on the closed lid like an offended plank. The darkness pressed in as the curtains shut completely. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Jason. "I told my mom I survived the apocalypse. I think we need to talk tomorrow." I typed back, "If I'm still me tomorrow, I'll explain everything." The thirst stirred faintly. The world dimmed. And for the first time since the clinic, I slept as a vampire, full of dread, hunger, and the terrifying realization that this was no longer a one-night mistake. I woke up fully expecting to be dead again, or on fire, or dramatically turning into ash like in the movies. Instead, I woke up annoyed, deeply, personally annoyed, because I couldn't move. For half a second, I thought I was paralyzed. Then I realized Dr. Victor had placed the lid of the coffin directly on top of me, like a supernatural pancake press. I lay there in pitch darkness, staring at nothing, reflecting on my life choices. "If I survive eternity," I muttered, "I'm haunting you." The lid shifted, light sliced in, and Dr. Victor's pale face hovered above me. "You are already dead," he said mildly. "Your threats have lost bargaining power." I sat up and immediately smashed my head into the low ceiling with enough force to dent wood. "Ow!" I hissed, rubbing my skull. "I felt that. That seems unfair for someone without a heartbeat." He handed me a folded set of clothes. "Daylight outside is lethal. Change quickly. We train again tonight." I squinted at the outfit. All black. Long sleeves. Hood. Gloves. Why do I look like a canceled superhero? "Sun protection," he replied. "And fashion. Your fashion is a cry for help," I said, but I changed anyway. The fabric felt thick and heavy. When I tested the curtain with one gloved finger, the sunlight burned straight through and singed the glove instantly. "Okay," I whispered. "That is aggressive." Even under full blackout, I could feel the sun like a pressure on my bones, like the world outside was one giant enemy spotlight searching for me personally. Dr. Victor explained that daylight wasn't just dangerous, it was humiliating. You will scorch. You will smoke. You will die loudly, he said. The neighbors will complain. Dying loudly is very on-brand for me, I muttered. He left me with a strict rule: do not test the sun again. Naturally, I immediately tested the sun again by cracking a different corner of the curtain 1 millimeter. My fingertip burst into flame like a party trick from hell. I slapped it out on my thigh and shrieked in pain. Lesson learned, I whispered. Since I couldn't go outside and couldn't sleep like a normal person, I did the next best thing. I doom-scrolled through my phone. Every headline felt unreal. Morning traffic delays. Coffee shortage. Local dog rescued from tree. The world had moved on without noticing that I had died and been accidentally rebooted as a vampire. Jason texted again, "You alive?" I hesitated, then replied, "Technically no, but I'm here." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "I'm coming back tonight. We need to talk face to face." Panic spiked. The hunger curled lazily inside my chest like a cat that knew exactly where the sunbeam would fall. I set the phone down. "This is going to go badly," I told the coffin. Night finally arrived like a slow, polite knock on reality. The pressure of the sun lifted. The hunger woke fully for the first time without panic attached to it. Dr. Victor emerged from the shadows looking refreshed in the deeply unsettling way only the undead could manage. "Tonight," he announced, "you hunt." I stood so fast I flipped the coffin lid again. "No, I don't," I said immediately. "I ethically sip from cups now. I am a blood minimalist." He frowned. "Your substitute will not sustain growth. You must learn controlled feeding." "I can barely manage controlled texting," I argued. "Absolutely not." He studied me for a long moment, then sighed slowly. "Very well. We hunt groceries. We went to a blood bank. Not the fancy kind. The forgotten kind." Dr. Victor somehow had connections everywhere, which was unsettling on several ethical levels. Inside, I stood between refrigerators full of sealed red bags, trying not to moan like a dramatic soap opera character. The thirst slammed into me at full volume. I grabbed the edge of the counter so hard I cracked it clean through. "If one bag breaks, I will lose all remaining dignity," I warned. Victor slid one bag into a thermal container and pushed it toward me. "Control. Drink slowly." I stabbed a straw into it like it owed me money. The flavor hit richer than the substitute, smoother, warmer. My knees actually buckled. "This should be illegal," I whispered. "It is expired," he said. "Technically, it is waste." "Then I am a very enthusiastic recycling program." We returned to the building with me buzzed like I had just won the world's creepiest lottery. I felt stronger, clearer, more stable, and worse, I liked it. The realization sat in my stomach like cold lead. "That's how it traps you," I said softly. "That's how this becomes easy." Dr. Victor didn't argue. Silence was answer enough. He handed me a black jump rope. "Your training continues. Strength without discipline becomes spectacle." I stared at it. "You want me to jump rope and help pajamas?" "I want you to not tear down buildings when startled," he replied. We trained until the moon sank lower in the sky. I jumped. I sprinted. I learned how to stop without embedding myself into walls. Progress was loud and destructive, but very real. Later, while I was practicing not crushing metal doorknobs, Dr. Victor suddenly froze. His head tilted. "You are being watched," he said quietly. "By who?" I asked. The shadows along the far wall shifted unnaturally. A figure stepped forward, tall, lean, eyes glowing cold blue. "By the council," the stranger said. "And they are displeased with your accident." My stomach dropped. "There's a council?" I hissed. Dr. Victor's jaw tightened. "Leave my fledgling be." The newcomer smiled faintly. "You made an undeclared turning. You brought human attention. You fed without registration." I raised my hand weakly. In my defense, I did not fill out any undead paperwork. The council agent's gaze slid to me. The hunger recoiled automatically. This thing did not smell like food. It smelled like judgment. "You will attend the tribunal," the agent said. "Both of you." Dr. Victor's voice turned sharp. "He is untrained. He is a liability," the agent corrected. "And now, he is political." The figure vanished into mist without taking a single step. The room felt smaller after he left. My mouth was dry for the first time since turning. "I don't like ghost lawyers," I whispered. Dr. Victor looked at me gravely. Then you will hate vampire court. Outside, a familiar heartbeat reached my ears. Jason. My chest tightened. Two worlds were about to collide. Mine, and the one I had abandoned without meaning to. I hadn't even learned how to survive yet. And now, apparently, I had to stand trial for dying wrong. Jason's heartbeat paced outside the building like a nervous drummer who had too much coffee and not enough good sense. I stood just inside the shadows, hood pulled low, fighting the urge to panic feed through sheer stress. Dr. Victor watched through a thin crack in the curtain. Your friend is persistent, he said calmly. That is dangerous. He once waited overnight for concert tickets in the rain, I whispered. Stubborn is his default setting. The doorbell rang again, longer and louder this time. Oliver, Jason shouted. If you're being held hostage by weird goth people, knock twice. My shoulders slumped. He's going to get himself eaten, I muttered. Before I could stop him, Dr. Victor reached for the door. I lunged and grabbed his sleeve. Don't, I hissed. If he steps inside, everything goes wrong. Too late. The door swung open. Jason stood there, breathless, eyes wide, hoodie crooked from rushing over. His gaze flicked from me to Dr. Victor to the entirely unwelcoming darkness behind us. Okay, he said slowly. New theory. You didn't join a cult. The cult joined you. I swallowed. Jason, you need to leave. Right now. He stepped closer instead. Not happening. You disappeared. You texted like a ghost. And you look like you've been hiding from the sun like it owes you money. Start talking. Before I could explain, the air suddenly folded in on itself. The night twisted like someone had wrung reality through a towel. Cold punched through my bones. My vision shattered into darkness and silver flashes. Jason screamed. I screamed back. Not because I was scared. Okay. Also because I was scared. But because screaming felt like the correct response when existence glitches. The ground vanished beneath our feet. Then, just as suddenly, it returned, hard, black, and cold. We stood in a massive underground chamber carved from gleaming dark stone. Towers of shadow stretched up into nothing. Floating lanterns cast pale, shifting light. Dozens of glowing eyes opened in the darkness all around us. Red, gold, icy blue. Jason clutched my arm so hard I felt bones protest. Nope, he whispered. Nope. No ancient underground murder courtroom was on my schedule today. Dr. Victor stepped forward and bowed. Counsel, he said. His voice echoed like it wasn't sure where to land. 7 figures emerged from the darkness, seated on thrones that looked grown rather than built. Their faces shifted subtly, never holding one form. One with piercing blue eyes leaned forward. Oliver Brooks, it intoned. Human turned without sanction. Product of an unlawful mistake. I blinked. Wow. You didn't even say hello. A low murmur rippled through the shadows. Jason whispered. They're roasting you with supernatural confidence. The blue-eyed figure ignored him. Your existence violates our laws. Dr. Victor stepped forward sharply. The fledgling did not consent to the turning. The fault is mine. The counselor's gaze barely flicked to him. Your fault is noted. Your punishment is pending. My stomach dipped. Pending sounds like a parking ticket, but with murder, I muttered. Jason nodded faintly. Yeah, I don't like the vibe of that word. Another counselor spoke, its voice like grinding ice. By tradition, unsanctioned fledglings are erased. The word hit like a sledgehammer. Erased. Gone. Undone. Jason's grip tightened painfully around my arm. Fear surged, cold and sharp. But something stronger pushed up behind it. Stubbornness. With all due respect, I said loudly, surprising myself. I didn't sign up for any of this. I was tricked during a blood donation. This is a medical error on a supernatural scale. The blue eyes studied me. You exist because of negligence. Then punish the negligent, I snapped. Not the victim. Jason choked out a weak laugh. He's got a point. This is like blaming the patient for the surgery. The counselor's gaze swung to Jason. The human speaks out of place. Jason straightened a little shakily. I speak because I'm terrified and apparently standing in Vampire Congress. Silence fell heavy over the chamber. The eyes glowed brighter. Dr. Victor looked from the council to me, anxiety tightening his expression. The blue-eyed counselor spoke again. You defied hunger on your first night. You spared a human at personal cost. These acts are uncommon. I let out a shaky breath. I'm bad at being a monster, I said. I've been bad at a lot of things, but I'm very consistent about it. Jason snorted nervously. The ice-voiced counselor sneered. Mercy does not erase risk. Then test me, I said. My voice echoed more than I expected. Judge me by what I do, not by what I was forced to become. The chamber hummed with quiet power as the council conferred in low, overlapping murmurs that felt like pressure in my skull. Jason leaned close and whispered, I really hope ancient vampire judges appreciate speech therapy-level bravery. Dr. Victor didn't look at either of us. He only watched the council. At last, the blue-eyed counselor raised a hand. The chamber fell still. The fledgling will not be erased, it declared. My knees nearly gave out. Jason exhaled so hard, he almost keeled over. However, the counselor continued, he will be placed under observation for 1 full lunar cycle. His feeding will be regulated. His actions monitored. 1 violation will result in immediate erasure. Cold settled into my chest. And my friend? I asked quietly. The counselor's gaze slid to Jason. The human becomes leverage. Jason's eyes widened. I do not like being leverage. If the fledgling falls, the icy voice added, the human falls with him. Dr. Victor surged forward. This is unjust. So was your turning. The counselor replied coldly. With a thunderous pulse of shadow, the chamber collapsed inward. The world lurched. Darkness crushed around us. And we were back in the alley in front of the building. Jason immediately collapsed against the wall, sliding to the ground. I just got threatened by Immortal law officials, he whispered. I officially need a new stress hobby. I dropped beside him, shaking violently. They're going to hurt you if I mess up, I said hoarsely. Jason looked at me, fear still in his eyes, but something else there too, resolve. Then don't mess up, he said simply. You're still you, vampire or not. Dr. Victor stood over us, grim and silent for once. Above us, the moon watched like a witness that refused to testify. My life now had rules, watchers, and a death sentence attached to every mistake. I had become undead by accident, and now survival was no longer just about me. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more funny, thrilling, and unpredictable stories like this. Your support keeps these stories coming.